Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Here I am. Okay, hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Friday, Friday, April 8th, 2022, as you may have seen if you read the Morning Post. If anyone reads the Morning Post, sometimes Bill will refer to it in his morning tweets, but it's Meh Friday. I assume it's Meh Friday. That's what else would you call it? Next Friday is the good one. So this is just kind of okay, I guess, or does it gradually get better and better? Like, do we start with the first Friday in January being totally crappy Friday, or does it start immediately following Good Friday? I don't know. Is it an annual cycle? Probably has nothing to do with anything. It's just one Good Friday, and that's all there is. Except, of course, if you're Eastern Orthodox, which, do they do a Good Friday? They do their own Easter. I wonder if they do their own Good Friday. So it's something less than meh for them, I guess. Thank God none of them will tolerate this show anymore because of my horrific bigotry against them. I have nothing against them. I just think it's really interesting that they kept their own calendar. I like it. It's fun. It's a source of entertainment, but not amusement. We don't, I don't know. We can't say that about a religion. Okay, well, at any rate, lovely people, and thank God none of them are angry at me or willing to express that anger. And I feel worse every time I make reference to that stuff. Anyway, the Kagro in the Morning radio show is live now. This okay Friday. Kagro X, that's me. David Waldman reminds you, that's you, that if you, again, you are looking for the nearest elderly GOP cocaine orgy, isn't everybody, you can call Madison Cawthorn's office and they'll provide the precise GPS coordinates. Be safe and have fun. That's right. Yes, it's just down in the woods there. Take a right when you see the tree I punched, and you'll find the cocaine orgy. Yeah, that kind of faded from the news pretty quickly once he was admonished by Kevin McCarthy. Stop telling everybody that we have cocaine orgies. I don't know whether they do or not, but, it could have been worded differently, whatever. Anyway, yes, good, terrific, fine, lots to catch up with today. I, this morning, by the way, caught a fun joke. Let's see. I guess I should keep an eye on things to see how long this joke lasts, because sometimes once they're discovered, these things go quickly on Wikipedia. Let me see. I'll just open up the page and keep it open. So I saw somebody tweeting about the very weird and creepy John Rose, Republican congressman of Tennessee, in the middle of the whole child brides legislation thing, who I guess somebody just stumbled upon it at some point, or they perhaps knew and had kept this stuff in their back pocket, whatever. But somebody tweeting this morning about John Rose and his child bride. Who was talking about him? Sergeant Joker. The Sergeant Joker. The, as they say, because something. GOP Congressman John Rose from Tennessee, pictured here in a screen cap of one of his recent tweets, I guess. GOP Congressman John Rose from Tennessee with his child bride, whom he started dating at the age of 16. A commentary here, but sure, gay people are the problem. All right, well put, good joke. That wasn't the one I was talking about, but it was the setup for it. And here, the screen cap of John Rose tweeting, "Happy birthday to our son Sam." I kind of feel bad that he's talking about his little kid's birthday, and it ends up being the butt of a joke. But what can you do? Happy birthday to our son Sam. And by the way, Sam, happy birthday. He's 1 year old today. When was this? That was back in March 23rd. So he's a big boy now. He's walking, exploring, and he's always interested in what Big Brother is up to. We love you, buddy, and I'm sure that is true. And at any rate, I was interested in his Wikipedia profile to see when he was agriculture commissioner. I was curious whether he was actually agriculture commissioner at the time that he met his future wife, who was state president of the Future Farmers of America. We know that they met during that time. Rose seems, for whatever reason, genuinely interested in continuing to work with and support the future farmers of America. And I think, it's safe to presume, for instance, that he's not looking for extra wives. He just might really enjoy supporting future farmers and also, whatever else his interest might be. Okay, whatever. It might not necessarily be nefarious, or he might not have built a career in helping the future farmers of America for the purpose of looking for a wife. It may just have happened. Anyway, what I thought was interesting, they had a picture of the family there in the tweet, which means I guess he got somebody else in to take the pictures. Maybe grandma was there. I don't know. Maybe it's his wife's mom and she's 25 and she's taking pictures. I don't know. Anyway, it's the four of them there, and his wife Chelsea is holding up Sam, I guess, to blow out his candles, and the other son is there too. I looked at the Wikipedia page though, and as it turns out, in case you were wondering, the answer is no, I don't think so. He was in office as the Agriculture Commissioner of Tennessee from August of 2002 to January of 2003, which is not a very long time. And I don't know. So that's it. And I think that they met they married in 2011 when she was, I think, a senior in college. But they met while she was in high school. So that's at least 4 years earlier, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 2007 or so. And then I guess if she was 16 when they met, then it would have been 2006 or 2005, perhaps. But he was out of office as Agriculture Commissioner by that time and had been succeeded by Ken Gibbons. Yes, that's right. Good trivia question. Anyone? Ken Gibbons. I don't know what he went on to do. But look at this. Ken Gibbons. From 1988 to 2002, he was a member of the Tennessee House of Representatives. And then in 2003, he was appointed by the governor to be the 34th Agriculture Commissioner, succeeding Mr. Rose here, who went on to something bigger and better, but I don't know what it was, because he didn't show up in Congress until 2019. But anyway, he stayed involved with it. Anyway, oh yes, right. I remember I was going to tell you a funny joke about this guy. Yes, right. Down in the personal details section here, with the basics on where and when he was born, political party, Republican, of course, spouse, Chelsea Doss, married 2011. Here's the fun part. Children, 3. Which, if you're looking at the picture of them, is a lot funnier because, of course, there are only 2 children. There hasn't been enough time. She hasn't been of childbearing age long enough to have 3 children. And, the 3rd child is her. That's the idea. It doesn't say how many of them you're married to. It just says how many children in the household, basically. And she's an adult. Stop. You're being unfair. All right. Well, anyway, I thought I would bring that to your attention. And then we could all watch the Wikipedia page and see how long it takes for the joke to spread on Twitter and the congressman's communications aide to get wind of it and then go to Wikipedia and edit that. Anyway, I don't know whether they really care enough or whether we have enough clout online to make the joke go viral, but we'll have a good time laughing about it anyway. All right, well, he'll just say he's a traditionalist. Why, back in the day, they married children all the time. But, I thought we advanced at this point. Anyway, I don't think the whole day has to be about Republican perverts. But they sure want it to be about that. And they want to, of course, label everyone that isn't like them as perverts. So it's really, we're just going to be trading accusations back and forth all day long. And it's really not fair because, I don't know, maybe it gives them a platform to do the same for people whom they have traditionally labeled perverts and whom the rest of us have come to understand are actually just normal and attracted to other adults. It's the child thing that's problematic. Okay, as long as we're stuck on this and I really need to find a way to get out of it, maybe we can harken back to the Tennessee Lookout piece that, who was it, Mighty OCD that sent this to us yesterday. I think so. Let me just clear my throat 5 or 6 more times so that you all become intensely interested in turning up your AirPods. I mentioned the story. Greg was on. We discussed other things. I never got back to it. And I was curious whether the piece offered any kind of explanation for what they were doing because of its, more local focus. The rest of the world had to write articles about, oh my God, look at what they're doing down there. That's crazy. What a bunch of weirdos. But the Tennessee folks can give you the local angle. By the way, Tennessee is having a great week in its legislature. I also saw yesterday that the Tennessee State House had passed a bill, I think, according to the Hill's Twitter page, they had passed a bill permitting the over-the-counter sale of ivermectin, just about, a year too late or whatever for it to even play a part in the internet rumor that falsely claimed that it helped you with COVID. Everybody now has seen the results of the test, but now you can go get it over the counter. And they're still big believers in that, I guess. I find that bizarre, but they're doing great there. So you can marry underage children. You can buy ivermectin over the counter. None of those bills have actually passed and been signed by the governor yet, but that's what they're working on at this critical juncture. So that's good news. And it also means you can marry your young horses without fear of catching their worms. So that's another step forward for Tennessee. And, gosh, I'm glad that they can live freely down there. All right, well, anyway, back to their marriage bill. Tennessee Lookout's headline was, Marriage Bill Creating Path Around Same-Sex Unions Causes Ruckus in House Committee. Sam Stockard reporting this piece yesterday morning, just before the show. That's how Mighty OCD picked up on it. It is illustrated by, again, that photo of Representative Tom Leatherwood, the chief sponsor of the bill, speaking in that poorly furnished Tennessee State House, I guess. Before the House Civil Justice Committee. This is the audience seating. That's why it looks like auditorium seating. Okay. Lawmakers battled Wednesday, it says, over legislation creating a new form of marriage in Tennessee. One between humans and the fungi phylum. I don't know what kind of new form of marriage there could be, but here's one. It says, one that some said could cause financial confusion among families. Wow. Scrap same-sex marriages, and I guess maybe they'll claim that that was the idea, and allow older men to marry young girls. That's just a helpful side benefit, I'm sure. The House Civil Justice Committee deferred House Bill 233 until April 13th after lengthy debate. But the Senate version of the bill, SB 562 by Senator Janice Bowling, remember we told you about her, she should be getting some scrutiny too, is set for consideration on the Senate floor Thursday morning. That would have been yesterday. Gosh, we don't even know how they did with that. I assume that if it passed, we would have heard about that. Because we heard about the ivermectin over-the-counter one. Maybe it was in the same bill. Hidden in that bill, child marriage. Representative Tom Leatherwood, a Republican, of course, said Wednesday he's sponsoring the bill in an effort to give ministers with conscientious objections to performing same-sex marriages another option, one that would be allowed for a union of a man and a woman only. But the woman can be two. So I don't know what that's supposed to mean for anybody. And I don't see how it gets around anything. That's why I'm kind of curious about this thing. Critics have said it undermines same-sex marriages, which have been legal since a landmark 2015 Supreme Court decision in, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right when I said Obergefell, is that right? Versus Hodges. I only see it written. We talk about it all the time in writing, and then I don't listen to anybody talking about it. But Leatherwood said Wednesday his bill would not change state law. Then what's the point? I mean, it does, but would not change state law and stop gay couples from getting married. He also said he opposes child marriages. I'm not certain what his statement is supposed to mean. His bill would not change state law, and it would stop gay couples, or it would not change state law in order to stop gay couples from getting married. I'm not certain what he's getting at. I think he's trying to stop that. So he's trying to claim it won't change state law, but of course it changes state law. Otherwise, it doesn't do it. It's not a bill. Some ministers wanted an alternative form that was respectful of their beliefs, he said. Still don't see how that's coming. The committee tacked an amendment onto the bill that would set an age requirement of 18 for marriages. Okay, well, that certainly does change at least the child marriage thing. I guess they were all offended by that. And that bumps the age up, I think, by a year. Although I think it might just mean, I think the law used to be that you had to be 17 at a minimum, but that you needed parental permission at 17. But, maybe it might have been the case that at 16, even parental permission can't help you in Tennessee. So giant leap backwards for the bill as written. But the amendment sets a minimum age of 18. That's helpful for getting them out from underneath this bad publicity. Yet Leatherwood ran into opposition from fellow Republicans, including Representative Johnny Garrett, who argued that the measure could create several damaging ramifications dealing with everything from state licenses to bigamy and marriages between older men and underage girls. Garrett pointed out that as an attorney, oh yes, by the way, first of all, I'm glad they're referring to them as girls. That's, what we're talking about here, if you're talking about underage females. But secondly, I did check on that high school basketball thing to find out whether they do, in fact, for some reason, refer to that county's high school basketball team as the women's basketball team or the girls' basketball team, as they do at every other high school in America. No, it's the girls' basketball team, just like it is everywhere else. And I don't know. I'm sure there wasn't. I doubt it was an agenda thing to switch it to women to make it seem like it was better for what's his name, David Byrd, to have been molesting his team when he was coaching them back when he was 28 years old and they were 15 or so. That doesn't really help much with that. I don't really know why they did that. They're just used to doing that. Maybe that's how they refer to it when they cover college basketball. But anyway, it is a girls' basketball team, in case you were wondering about that. Garrett, the Republican who was criticizing Leatherwood's bill, pointed out that as an attorney, he is licensed by the state to practice and to have attorney-client privilege. Yet Leatherwood's bill would enable people to get married without a state license, averting certain legal protections in which the state wouldn't recognize the marriage, affecting matters such as wills and probate court cases, insurance, and retirement pensions. You're going to have a situation where the parties are going to say, "You weren't married to my mama. You weren't married to my daddy," Garrett said. So what? Therefore, a survivor of this new type of marriage, carrying only a certificate, could be cut out of an inheritance. Oh, I see. Okay, so he's not opposed to the marriages per se. He's just talking about what kind of problem it's going to create in probate court, that a guy marries, even if a guy marries a woman who's of age, 25 years old, they can get married without the requirement of a license. That's one of the things that the bill eliminated. There was this whole section, a whole swath of the legal code that got eliminated, just deleted, or would be deleted by this bill. One of the things was the minimum age, but another one was the requirement for getting a marriage license. So I guess what they're saying is you can get a marriage certificate. You can get that anyway. And then, rich husband, or for that matter, rich wife dies, and her young husband says, "I inherit the estate according to her will," and somebody else will say, "No, you don't inherit it. The next of kin is me, the child, because you don't have a legal marriage." you have a certificate, but you never had a license. But I'm not so certain that probate courts say, all right, well, let me see the license, because who keeps the marriage license? I mean, I guess people do as a souvenir, but I don't know that people. I guess they keep the marriage certificate as an essential document, but not necessarily the license. I think once you get the certificate, you're like, well, everyone presumes that we had the license, and I guess that's the problem. Maybe now in Tennessee you'll have to require it, because you bring the marriage certificate and say, wait a second, anybody can get one of those. You gotta have a license, but they eliminate the license requirement, and then you can just say, I don't know. But I mean, you could be printing marriage certificates on computers all the time. Anyway, I don't know. It's the least of the problems here, I think. But whatever. This guy has a practice in that, and I guess it occurred to him that could become a problem. So therefore, you could have problems in probate court. Insurance companies might not pay out if a survivor in a wrongful death action stemming from a DUI case or other incident, he said. I guess I know what kind of practice this guy has, because there's a million reasons why you might be entitled to survivor's benefits, not just wrongful death action stemming from a DUI case, but I guess that's what he handles. Further, some people could marry more than one person because they wouldn't have to file a marriage license with the state, he said. I guess could happen. We're going to legalize bigamy in this state, Garrett said, to tremendous cheers, no doubt. The most troublesome part of the bill, though, deals with older men trying to marry underage girls. Garrett noted he has a 15-year-old daughter, which is why he cares about things. You know how it is with the Republicans. I have, 6 sons and no daughters. What the hell do I care? But I could imagine they only put things in the light of, if this were happening to me, I'd be mad. Anyway, what if there's some man out there, and there is Congressman John Rose, as a matter of fact, and for that matter, Congressman Scott DeJarle and State Representative David Byrd, and I would venture to guess a few more of his colleagues. But what if there's some man out there that wants to take my daughter and hold her out as his wife when there's nothing in this state to hold accountability to what that relationship is, because that relationship is not recognized under current law, Garrett said. Leatherwood told Garrett they would have to disagree, and later he told reporters the measure is designed mainly to give ministers another path for conducting wedding ceremonies if they object to same-sex marriages. I still don't get it. It changes nothing currently in state law, so it would not impact gay marriage one way or the other, Leatherwood said. So I'm not trying to impact minimum age. I'm not trying to impact gay marriage. I'm not trying to change anything. This makes no changes in law. Why am I voting for this bill then? The legislation, however, specifically states that these marriages would be between one man and one woman and would create a marriage certificate reflecting that. Leatherwood contends the bill would not have allowed minors to get married, and he noted an amendment he added Wednesday that would require both parties to reach the age of 18. Well, I mean, I hope that maybe that's just a semantic error. I would hope that if he's serious, that it would be a requirement that both parties had already reached the age of 18. I'm going to reach the age of 18. That's my plan. That shouldn't be enough, but that's what way it's quoted here. And I know an amendment that I added that would require both parties to reach the age of 18 eventually, maybe by your 5th anniversary. State Representative Tory Harris, however, said he discussed the measure with David Fowler, former state senator and director of Family Action Council of Tennessee, and that's not. It sounds like one of Ted Cruz's favorite porn titles, but it's not. The action is political action. Family Action Council of Tennessee, who pushed the legislation as part of an effort to take the matter to the U.S. Supreme Court. Okay. I mean, it doesn't mean anything that they want to get there, but this is one of those bills that they think will cause controversy and get to the Supreme Court and help them find a weird path to outlaw same-sex marriage. He keeps saying that that's the thing, but I don't see how it does it. And I'm trying to think about it while we're running through it here. You get married with a certificate only, but But the certificate, marriage certificates say you got married. This person and that person got married on this date, and it was officiated by this person, and it's signed, and I don't know, is it notarized or something like that? A certificate? I don't even know. But anyway, I guess that will now also say, and P.S., this one's a man and that one's a woman, and that's the only way that this thing works. I see what he's trying to do, sort of, but I don't see like what the point is or why anybody would print such certificates or why anybody would think that the certificate needs to say that. I mean, it's too late at that point. You just print, and by the way, you just print the regular kind of certificate that people usually use and use that instead. And I don't know, ministers, it doesn't make any real sense. I'd love to have somebody try and walk me through this one day, except that I'd have to talk to one of these people, and they're crazy and they wouldn't be able to convince me anyway. All right. Getting up to the break time here. So let's plow through the rest of this here. Leatherwood says, right, he added the stupid amendment that doesn't read right. Toby Harris, State Representative Toby Harris, however, said he discussed the measure with Fowler. Something pushed it as part of an effort to take them out of the U.S. Supreme Court. Harris said he was told an age requirement was left out of the bill because Fowler felt that, whoops, I'm behind on the music here. Fowler felt that under God's law, marriage should be up to people, not based on age. These guys are making no sense. The message it sends is our children's safety doesn't matter, that our elders can be taken advantage of by just a signature on a piece of paper, that all their property can get taken away from them because under common law in Tennessee it would look like they gave away their rights, said Harris, a Democrat of Memphis. Hi, it's me, David Waldman, the same guy who was just talking to you a second ago. Our Patreon subscription drive is still going strong, with over 175 monthly donors who help keep us on the air. If we've helped keep you going during the pandemic, why not return the favor and help us keep going so we can all be together for the next disaster? Patreon.com, Patreon.com, makes it easy to make secure, recurring monthly contributions to support our show. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. Maybe you'd like to thank us for keeping you sane during the Trump era. Maybe you're looking forward to in-depth explanations of what's going on in the Biden administration. Whatever it is that keeps you listening, we need your help to keep bringing it to you. And hey, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running with those options too. Thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We literally could not do this without you. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Edwards Radio. Okay, I almost made it all the way through that article, and I'm baffled by the whole thing. It doesn't make any sense. I'm trying to figure it out on the fly. It makes zero sense. So maybe it goes nowhere and it's gobbledygook. And, you know, in all likelihood, this is the vast majority of what state legislatures in places that are dominated by Republicans spend their time on, not only because of the content of the bill, but because it's so poorly written. But they have these grand designs. This is the way to do it. I've found the legal way to undo same-sex marriage, and we're going to make it all the way to the Supreme Court. But no doubt that is, the background of, the Texas anti-abortion bounty law. They probably tried 250 different versions of that before they managed to come up with one that, and mind you, it doesn't make any sense legally. They just found the formulation that judges all the way up to the Supreme Court were willing to say, I don't care who thinks I'm an idiot for sustaining the legality and constitutionality of this law. I'm just going to do it. But some things are still too embarrassing to people, and this might prove to be one of them. But, so Tory Harris, a Democrat in the state legislature, was the one criticizing this thing. And what? He says Harris said he was told an age requirement was left out because Fowler, who's the guy from the Family Action Council of Tennessee, Fowler said God's law should control here, which is interesting because they're legislating with regular humans law instead. But whatever. God's law says it should just be up to people and not based on age. And I don't know. Whatever. I don't know what to say about that one. But then he says the message it sends is that our children's safety doesn't matter, that our elders can be taken advantage of. Elders can be taken advantage of. I don't really know why. By just a signature on a piece of paper, which is the way we take advantage of most people in this country, that all their property can get taken away from them because under common law in Tennessee it would look like they gave away their rights. All right, I'm not sure where he's coming from. Harris contends the bill remains alive only because it deals with social matters rather than nuts and bolts type of legislation such as education and jobs. In other words, a culture war thing. But I don't know. To me, they would want to bury this one. It's really divided a lot of us, Harris said, adding it is pitting Democrats against moderate and conservative Republicans in the legislature. That'll happen. And I don't really see the problem, but okay. Now, this is the interesting part. At the end, the bill has 20 co-sponsors in the House and 3 in the Senate. So there are many more weirdo pervs out there looking for child brides than just Tom Leatherwood. 19 more members of the House have sponsored the thing, and 2 more senators besides, what's her name, Janice Bowling, have signed on. Now, they may try and claim, I only signed on once we added the amendment setting the minimum age at 18. But I doubt it. They're liars, and we should arrest them. How about that? I don't know. We'll figure it all out at the probable cause hearing later. Okay, so that's what's up in Tennessee. This is what they're wasting their time on. And look at what I've done with it. I also have wasted my time with it. And guess what? I have to waste more time with it because here I was ready to finally run away from the whole thing, and the mighty OCD who started this whole thing to begin with sends me, no, you got to keep going with this all day long, LOL, because this just in, at least into my mailbox. It's actually just in yesterday at 7:49 p.m. when it was tweeted around, and even before that, when it was first published at Alabama.com, AL.com, really, from the Birmingham Real-Time News, or no, maybe that's just what they're calling this section, Birmingham Real-Time News. I don't know. I don't think that's a real publication, Birmingham Real-Time News. I'm sure it's the other, I don't know what the Birmingham paper, what is the Birmingham paper? Doesn't matter. The news is bad anyway, and it's not even just breaking. Oh, look at where did this come from? Why am I seeing this now? All right, you're all pulling my leg. This was just tweeted around for some reason yesterday, April 7th, 2022. Yet the story is older, from August of 2021. So therefore, it doesn't count or something? No, or it's just something we missed along the way. Lawyer on Alabama Governor Kay Ivey's staff arrested on child solicitation charge. All day long, it's true. Chase Tristian Espy, not Christian, and not Tristan, Tristian. Chase Tristian Espy. Here shown in his, mugshot from Jefferson County Jail. Carol Robinson reporting for AL.com, whatever the hell that is. We've read from them before. I dislike, though, these newspapers. Just have your own site and tell me what newspaper you're reporting for. It's important to podcasters. Well, actually, not really. To live broadcasters, I guess. A staff attorney for Alabama Governor Kay Ivey has been arrested on a child solicitation charge and was immediately fired. So good. Chase Tristian Espy, 36, now has more opportunity, more time on his hands. Maybe that's not a great thing. Charged with child solicitation by computer/electronic solicitation of a child, which is a Class B felony and also terrible syntax. What is that? Child solicitation by computer. Oh, I see. Child solicitation by computer / electronic solicitation of a child. Okay. To related charges or one charge that can be either one. Espy, a Birmingham attorney and former deputy general counsel in the office of the governor, was booked into the Jefferson County Jail way back in August of 2021. Maybe I already saw it. Maybe it was already in my Republican squad thread. I edited them this morning. Now I got to go back and comb through it and see whether he's a duplicate. Does it say anything about what he was up to, or in particular how you can look out for predators like him? Maybe I'm not actually that interested in finding out. I don't want to get too grossed out, and I don't think it's in here. They don't want to give away his sources and methods, I guess, because they're all busy looking for child brides, and they don't need the competition from the likes of, well, nobody listening to the show, but you could be accidentally passing the information on to somebody who's going to do something nefarious with it. All right, that's the morning Republican child molester roundup for now. In further news, I told you yesterday, yes, that the Gridiron Dinner was a big super spreader event and all the important people who got COVID there, and still more expected to come. And we all have to wait and see whether Dr. Fauci himself actually comes down with COVID from this thing, because he was there. But there's more people who are ill. One, I'll start out by saying somewhere in my inbox here, I think from somebody's tweeting, is Nancy Pelosi has COVID. So I guess we were all waiting for that one too. Who tweeted that one to me, and why is that not immediately obvious? Is this it? Yes, Drew Hamill is responsible for this diversion. Drew Hamill is the deputy chief of staff for Speaker Pelosi, and everybody knows that COVID announcements fall to the deputy chief of staff. After testing negative this week, I guess in order to go to the Gridiron. Oh, no, that was just proof of vaccination. But she's tested all the time, I'm sure. Speaker Pelosi received a positive test result for COVID-19 and is currently asymptomatic. The Speaker is fully vaccinated and boosted and is thankful for the robust protection of that the vaccine has provided, according to this tweet. Speaker will quarantine consistent with the CDC guidance and encourages everyone to get vaccinated, boosted, and tested regularly. Or to test regularly, I guess. And let's see. Also in this thread, news that Connecticut Governor Ned Lamont, Greg, how did you let this happen? Ned Lamont has tested positive, also with no symptoms, so that's nice. He received a second booster about a week ago. So, all right. At least that keeps the symptoms down. And somebody mentioned that with all the new cases in Congress, if everybody, isolates, although in the House, I guess it would be okay. But I guess if they get enough senators where they don't have proxy voting, and do we still do some proxy voting? We still allow it in the House? I know there was some discussion of getting rid of it, but I don't think that they ever did. Hope not, because someone was pointing out, well, how ironic would it be if they never got back to passing new emergency coronavirus relief because they were all sick with coronavirus, or at least isolating because they didn't want to spread it even asymptomatically to others. So, okay, that's on the congressional front, more names for the list. And secondly, on the Twitter front, well, someone from whom you've been getting a lot of your Twitter news, Eric Feigl-Ding, who is a doctor and has been an epidemiologist, to be specific, and health economist. How do you like that? Who's been following the pandemic, in granular detail since forever. I now have something in common with Speaker Pelosi, Attorney General Garland, Secretary Raimondo, Senators Collins, Warnock, and Representatives Craig, Schiff, and Castro. Yesterday, I didn't know. I don't think the article yesterday said that Senator Collins and Warnock had gotten it. But I guess they do now. He says, now caught the Rona too. Having some cough, chills, and small fever tonight, but doing okay. Luckily boosted. Please get boosted, folks. He says he never went to any parties or social events, haven't met with anyone outside family. My son was positive yesterday. He's been video gaming since. That's good treatment. I was negative and no symptoms all yesterday and this morning. This virus comes on fast. Take it seriously, folks. Stay safe. And, Yeah, okay. And then he goes on to discuss some of his own personal medical problems that worry him, given that he's now got a positive diagnosis. But gosh, oh yes, and he says there's also some bad wastewater numbers that he's looking at as well. So all right, well now he's got to stay home. He's got plenty of time to thumb through all of the data and let us know what's going to happen. So all right, there you go. Lots of people catching COVID. I'm now rethinking all the things I'm thinking of doing. I saw Leanna Wen was out in force this morning saying, yes, the Gridiron Dinner has turned into a super spreader event, but that's okay. We should continue having these events. That's just the way it is. She's pushing very hard for don't worry about it. Everybody go get some COVID. It doesn't matter anymore. And I feel like we keep forgetting that even people who get mild cases sometimes end up going back to the doctor, apparently weeks and months later, saying, I'm having weird problems. And they turn out to be, these long-term vascular problems that are making it difficult for them to say they've successfully put COVID behind them. So try not to get it. That's my goal. And, it looks like people are going to make it impossible to succeed in that goal. But I say, I'm not bothered by masks. I just bought some more. I got some from project95.com. Is that what they call it? I should double check before I send anybody to the wrong place. But projectn95.org. And I ordered from them a while back, and, they were in the height of the supply chain hysteria, and they took a long time to get those things to me, I admit. This time, much, much better. But they have changed the lineup of what they're offering. And I had to go with, the KN94s. I think they're doing the right thing in that they're pushing N95. And that means those really super tight-fitting ones that strap on with the over-the-head straps. One up top and one down below. And the ear loop ones that everybody prefers because they're easier to take on and off. They don't seal as well. They don't stay on as tight. So I guess they're not as effective, but the material is good and the filtration is pretty decent. And for most people, doing masking when they run into the supermarket or something like that, like me, I'm going with that. I don't know whether Greg feels the same way or not, or whether, doctors are laughing at all of us because we're not wearing the N95s with the top and bottom straps, but, they don't work with my little around the neck thing that keeps that snaps onto the ear loops to keep my mask conveniently dangling just below my neck for when I'm going in and out of stores. And I'm not giving that up, and I don't know, maybe I should. These new variants, I think, can get through everything except perhaps the top-of-the-line masks. Anyway, projectn95.org did a good job delivering those things to me within about 2 days, 2 to 3 days this time. So they're right back on top of things with their logistics. So just wanted to let you know. You should go get some if you're running out. All right, let's see. Oh, yes, right. Major gaps in our national security were a big concern that came to light just yesterday. Let me jump into this story, even though I could probably get some more updated stuff from the front pages this morning. But I'll jump back to this thing started developing yesterday, the day before. I watched people tweeting about, they were taking pictures of an FBI raid going on at a hoity-toity apartment building somewhere in D.C., and no one knew exactly what it was about. And it then developed into this bizarro story wherein, well, here's Natasha Bertrand tweeting about it yesterday and then pointing at some stories that they finally posted over at CNN. Wow, she says. Investigators searching the apartments of the two men who allegedly posed as DHS agents say they found a loaded Glock 19. Okay, I mean, it's not great, but one gun, right? No, but there's more. Disassembled long guns, all right. Sniper spotting equipment, ammunition, handcuffs, radios, body armor, a surveillance drone, and several servers. They're the servers from Ukraine. Give them to Donald Trump. In a second tweet, she says agents also found a binder with the list of all the names of people who lived in their apartment building, many of whom were law enforcement. And now it starts to get like weird and kooky, right? In their initial hearing before a D.C. federal judge today, that was yesterday, prosecutor Josh Rothstein said that one of the defendants they both have, one of them has particularly difficult to work out last name. It is Taherzadeh. Taherzadeh? Maybe Taherzadeh. Taherzadeh. Well, Taherzadeh deleted a Facebook page, and his co-defendant, whose surname is Ali, less difficult to pronounce, had multiple Pakistani visas and claimed to be connected with the Inter-Services Intelligence, the ISI of Pakistan, the intelligence/military outfit. And the story is quite strange. Here's yesterday's CNN story. FBI arrests 2 men in D.C. accused of impersonating federal officers, and also notes that 4 Secret Service agents have been placed on leave. Holmes, Librand, and Evan Perez filed this story yesterday, and I bet it's gotten even weirder since. You've probably heard the details, at least in passing. The FBI arrested 2 men in Washington, D.C. Wednesday for allegedly impersonating Department of Homeland Security agents for more than 2 years, giving expensive gifts to federal agents in D.C., providing them apartments, and offering to purchase a weapon for a Secret Service agent who just happened to be assigned to protection of the First Lady, Jill Biden, according to an affidavit. Aryan Taherzadeh, that's my best attempt at his name, and Haider Ali allegedly provided, quote, rent-free apartments, estimated to cost more than $40,000 annually, to each of these apartments, $40,000, to a DHS employee and members of the U.S. Secret Service, all while impersonating federal agents, the affidavit said. As of Monday, 4 Secret Service agents were placed on administrative leave pending investigations. The affidavit details substantial gifts the 2 defendants allegedly gave federal agents. According to the document, Taherzadeh allegedly provided a Secret Service agent assigned to protect the White House complex a rent-free penthouse apartment for 1 year at a cost of just over $40,000. Except I understand from the tweeting about the situation that it was, when they say at a cost of $40,000, apparently it wasn't that he was fronting the money or that any foreign intelligence service was fronting the money. They were just allegedly, according to the rumors I was hearing, they were just telling the owner of the building, we're government agents and we need to take commandeer control of these apartments. And he said, oh my gosh, government agents, go ahead. How the landlord is saying, sure, here's $40,000, no compensation necessary, over and over again. I don't know. I guess I'll have to lay out that detail later on. And that, of course, I don't think that appears in the CNN piece, so maybe it's not even true. But, I mean, even if they're paying rent on it, that's just even weirder. But okay. So he gives away this rent-free apartment, a penthouse apartment, to a Secret Service agent, which is outrageous because, if somebody says, hey, do you want a free penthouse apartment? If you say yes, you're under investigation. I mean, what are you talking about? Free apartment. Why? And as a law enforcement officer to say yes to that? What are you, out of your mind? Well, you're suspended now, I assume. Although it does say it wasn't immediately clear if the agent on the First Lady's detail or the agent assigned to the White House complex were among the 4 placed on leave. It could be 4 other nuts, and the other 2 aren't on leave. I don't know. I mean, I doubt that that's the case, but at any rate, as of the reporting, it wasn't clear. There's also the allegation that these guys offered to purchase a $2,000 assault rifle for the agent who's on the First Lady's detail. A $2,000 assault rifle, of course, means, one of the fancy AR-15s or derivatives. I mean, there are different ones, and sometimes they even have different letters and numbers and all that. Who cares? It doesn't matter, but you get the idea. The Secret Service said in a statement to CNN, you can imagine what they're statement says, "This is terrible, and we hope this never happens again, and we're very professional, and we're going to do something about it." When reached for comment, DHS referred CNN to the Secret Service. Ask them. We didn't have it. None of our agents were actually involved. Those guys pretended to be DHS agents. Although I think that they might have perhaps given some gifts. I thought it says here, $40,000. Some of these gifts were given to a DHS employee, so they should have to answer for that. Well, I don't know. They didn't. Taherzadeh and Ali allegedly obtained assault rifles, handguns, and other items to pose as federal agents. According to the affidavit, Taherzadeh allegedly gave federal agents gifts, including iPhones, surveillance systems, a drone, a flat-screen TV, a case for storing an assault rifle, not a safe, but a case anyway, a generator, and law enforcement paraphernalia, whatever that might be, telling the agents they were paid for by DHS. So fine, I'll just take it. The affidavit alleged Taherzadeh also conned an individual into researching a government contractor for the Department of Defense and intelligence community as part of a, quote, recruiting process for the Homeland Security Investigations branch of DHS. FBI agents were seen entering the apartment building in Washington's Navy Yard Wednesday afternoon. An FBI spokesman told CNN the agents were conducting a court-authorized search at that location. A source familiar with the situation said the FBI raid is related to the arrest of the two men. Taherzadeh and Ali's alleged ruse, this is great. How was it uncovered? Was it by somebody saying, I don't understand, why are these two alleged DHS agents giving away apartments paid for by DHS? What's the story that makes me believe that? Why are they giving me guns and flat-screen TVs? Nobody asks questions, except the U.S. Postal Service. Their ruse was uncovered when a U.S. postal inspector started investigating, all the guns and TVs and stuff they were having mailed to their house? No. Started investigating an alleged assault of a letter carrier, a mail carrier, in the apartment complex where the two men allegedly had multiple units, according to court documents. Did people think that those guys beat up a letter carrier? No, the inspector interviewed the men as potential witnesses of the assault, and they identified themselves as investigators with the U.S. Special Police, because that's what we've got, Special Police. They patrol the Special Olympics, I guess. What's the U.S. Special Police? I don't think that's a thing. Investigating, what were they doing? What was their assignment to Special Police? They were investigating the January 6th attack. Very high level. So you don't have to suspect us. I mean, why don't they just say, I'm an architect and I didn't see the assault? Then they're off the hook. Throughout the investigation, the inspector learned that the two men had given gifts to members of the U.S. Secret Service. How? Did you see this assault? No. Or if they did, that guy punched him. It was terrible. I mean, I wonder what comes out. I would love to know how this happens. Now, if it's like, all right, we'll be truthful. We saw the guy get punched. But the guy who punched him is a good guy. Well, he's a Secret Service agent, so he's an upstanding law enforcement kind of guy. How do you know he's a Secret Service agent? Where's the secret, for one thing? But, he told us when we gave him a free apartment and a TV. Why did you do that? I'm a Pakistani intelligence agent. Oh, it's all falling apart now. Why did I do this? I would love to know how the postal inspector cracks this case. But he does. The inspector provided the information, of course, to the DHS Office of Inspector General, who then contacted the FBI, according to the affidavit. CNN has not been able to identify attorneys for the two men. They're currently being detained and will be arraigned yesterday, in U.S. District Court in Washington, D.C., before Magistrate Judge G. Michael Harvey. Congratulations for your day in the sun, Magistrate Judge G. Michael Harvey. Is there more information now this morning? Because what a bizarre story. And what do I even look for? Oh, I guess I should look for that guy's crazy name, Taherzadeh, and see what's in the news this morning. What's the latest? All of this stuff is from yesterday, so I guess there's just not a whole lot more. But I'm anxious to try and find out what's going on, and I'd love to know the story they told, how they could con Secret Service agents and DHS agents and others into believing it's cool for me to take a free apartment and guns and TVs paid for by the Department of Homeland Security, because these guys definitely are DHS agents, or maybe for the U.S. Special Police because they said so. And the government is constantly giving out free penthouse apartments to cops. Why not, right? I'll take it. That worked. But they couldn't get out of, hey, did you guys see a Postal Service letter carrier get assaulted? That they couldn't worm their way out of. No. Or, yes, that guy did it. Okay, can I ask what you do for a living? Anything. I'm unemployed right now. You know, they're going to check maybe on your employment or whatever. So I don't know. Maybe that, or maybe they thought maybe I can con this guy into not checking. If I say I'm a high level super secret guy, then you won't check me out. But how they got to I mean, the only thing I can think of is, how do you know that guy who lives here is in the Secret Service? Well, he's a friend of mine. I gave him an apartment. I don't know. I'd love to know the story. Well, we'll have to follow this trial, but you'll have to wait a while for it to happen. And you'll have to wait a while for our next story, too, because we're just seconds away, about 31, as a matter of fact, from playing our music and taking our top of the hour break. So what have we covered? Sex weirdos from Alabama and Tennessee. These weirdos from who knows where. That's another thing, too. I'm curious. Everybody's now speculating about whether or not they're foreign agents, because, one guy said he was associated with the ISI from Pakistan. And if they're being sent here, like if it's a foreign operation to get somehow to the Secret Service people who are inside the White House and with the First Lady, and I don't know what, they're going to kidnap or infiltrate or something, and they're trying to run some kind of undercover operation. And your name is what? Aryan Terazadi, and the other one is Ali. I would say, for the purpose of this operation, you're Jones and you're Smith. And I think that will probably help us. But they did not do that. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Let's see. Okay, yes, more other stories that we can jump into, although I don't think I have the latest news stories on it, and this too I would have to go and look up. But everyone's Twitter friend, NYC Southpaw, tweeting yesterday that there was news that the New York Attorney General, the state Attorney General, it's Letitia James, is that right? Is James? Tweets out the news that Mr. Well, what the hell's the news? Why don't I get it? Ah, yes. New York AG moves to hold former President Trump, you remember him, in contempt. Well, we all hold him in contempt, but it's important to note that it's now civil contempt. Remember that there's a difference between civil contempt and criminal contempt, and it sounds like you want him held and bad guys held in criminal contempt, because criminal, right? The criminal contempt basically comes with a fine or a defined punishment. Civil contempt is actually, in many cases, the more powerful of the two. All of the people who are defying their January 6th committee subpoenas are being charged with criminal contempt, which sounds tough, but then they'll be fined or sentenced to a defined prison term, and then the punishment is over, and then they walk away, and that's the end of the subpoena game with them. Civil contempt is an ongoing thing that judges can basically use to coerce you to comply with your subpoena. In other words, you're going to jail and you'll stay there until you agree to testify or hand over the documents or whatever it is. Or you will be fined X dollars a day until you give us what we're demanding of you. That's actually the more powerful of the thing in terms of the coercive value, I think. Because, you can count the days off, 60 days in jail. All right, well, if you can it sucks to be in jail. Terrible things can happen. But, which is a huge problem in our penal system, by the way. You shouldn't have to worry that, you're going to be a crime victim when For some people we don't care, I guess, but we really should care for all people. But anyway, not what I meant to talk about. But civil contempt is, I'm going to fine you, like in this case, I think they're talking about $10,000 a day until you give us the documents, which some people might say, who cares? Trump says he's a billionaire. He could spend $10,000 a day, all year and not care. But he's actually quite cash poor, and he'll end up not being able to pay the fines and then have to go to jail for that. It could be nice. Mr. Trump should now be held in civil contempt, says the AG. It's not a done deal. They're asking for it. And fined in an amount sufficient to coerce his compliance with the court's order and compensate the Office of the Attorney General for its fees and costs associated with this motion. And there's a couple of screen grabs of the motion are displayed here. Southpaw goes on to say, the full memo is here. The procedural history recounts the quagmire of dealing with Trump through counsel. The AG's office is asking the court to fine Trump $10,000 a day, which it calls, yes, they think it is a sum sufficient to coerce his compliance with the subpoena for documents. I wonder, says Southpaw, whether that's true. And it's a good question. But it's out there, and that's nice news. Are there news reports of it now? Trump, civil contempt. I grabbed those things as they flew by on Twitter, and knowing that I would have to go back and go looking for new stories written about it. Well, okay, NBC News has some coverage here. They may have some additional details. New York AG seeks to hold Trump in civil contempt. Tom Winter and Dara Gregorian reporting. New York Attorney General Letitia James, got it, is seeking to hold former President Trump, well, you know what they're trying to do, $10,000 a day, rather than comply in full with the court's unambiguous directive by producing all responsive documents by March 31st. Mr. Trump did not comply at all, the court filing says. What do you know? James said in a statement, instead of obeying a court order, Trump is trying to evade it. We are seeking the court's immediate intervention because no one is above the law. Trump responded by insisting he is innocent. Does he actually offer a statement here? This is just a continuation of the greatest witch hunt of all time by a failed attorney general, whatever, she's brand new, who continues to use her office for political gain. All right, well, Trump lawyer Alina Habba, Habba, said his legal team will adamantly oppose the frivolous and baseless motion filed by the Attorney General's office today. Our client has consistently complied with the many discovery requests served by the Attorney General's office over the years, Habba said in a statement. Well, that should be simple to prove. And then this one would go nowhere, but I'm pretty sure that they probably didn't comply with this one. James's office has been investigating whether to file a civil suit against the Trump Organization over allegations that it inflated financial statements for over 2 years. 10. Oh, well. In court filings, her office alleged that it has, quote, uncovered substantial evidence establishing numerous misrepresentations in Mr. Trump's financial statements provided to banks, insurers, and the Internal Revenue Service. The Trump Organization, which has denied any wrongdoing, has portrayed itself in court papers as having bent over backward to comply with the document requests. In a February court filing, the company said it has been producing thousands of documents each week, in excess of 750,000 by the OAG's own admission, and all the while keeping the OAG, Office of the Attorney General, updated on its progress with weekly progress reports. The company also said it's on track to meet an April 15th deadline to turn over all of the relevant documents. That's the end of next week. We'll see. Good Friday, as a matter of fact, I think, right? James's office has complained that the company has been slow to turn over documents involving Trump, even though he personally executed documents central to the issues under investigation. Among the items the Attorney General's office has said it wants to review are file cabinets at the Trump Organization holding Mr. Trump's files and Post-it notes that he used to communicate with his employees. And many of those are probably eaten and flushed down the toilet. While you're monitoring COVID in the wastewater, you should be looking for the Post-it notes. In his February order, a New York judge ordered Trump personally to turn over documents as well, which the Attorney General's office has said he agreed to do. Trump was initially supposed to turn the documents over by March 1st, but his lawyers asked for more time, the Attorney General's office says. The filing says James's office extended the time to March 31st, the whole month, which Mr. Trump's counsel agreed was acceptable. and the court approved. When March 31st arrived, however, Trump's attorneys filed objections, arguing that the subpoena is grossly overbroad, unintelligible, unduly burdensome, and does not adequately describe which documents and communications are requested or sought with reasonable particularity. James's office said that Trump's lawyers also said they wouldn't turn over documents because they hadn't been able to find them and they were likely to be in the possession of the Trump organization. The Attorney General's office said that's not enough of a response and that Trump's lawyers didn't include necessary details, including which records were sought, what locations were searched, or what individual worked with counsel or at his direction to conduct a search. In addition to the $10,000 a day in fines, James's office is also asking the judge to award legal fees for the extra costs stemming from the stonewalling. And you can see this is, more of his regular delay. You got to turn over all your documents by March 1st. Okay. March 1st comes around. Where's the documents? Well, it's unfair. We need more time. There's so many documents. All right, I'll give you till March 31st. Okay, that's fair. March 31st comes around. What do you do? We didn't search because it's unfair. It was overbroad. We couldn't tell what you were looking for. I said, all right, well, what kind of searching did you do? I don't know. Well, who did the searching for you? I couldn't tell you. Well, where are the documents? You just say that. Just say it's unfair. A judge is going to say, I don't think it was unfair. It was pretty clear, but all right, come back in a month and brief me on why you think it's unfair. And it goes on for another month. And you just do one after another. Come up with more and more excuses. All right, well, let's see. The Trumps are appealing another part of the February order from the state Supreme Court Justice Arthur Engoron, I'm not certain how they pronounce that, which said the former president and his two children, Don Jr. and Ivanka in this case, have to sit for depositions for the Attorney General's investigation. I guess that hasn't happened. Trump also sued James in federal court in December to halt the investigation, arguing that her probe is a politically motivated witch hunt designed to provide fuel for a criminal investigation into the company by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. Two lawyers from James's office, and that appears to be over. Although just yesterday, I think the Manhattan District Attorney said, well, it's not completely abandoned. And I think he put out this interesting statement that actually garnered some praise, reluctant praise from some people yesterday, saying, well, we haven't decided to kill it off entirely, and but we're going to do some final investigations, and we'll tell you exactly what happens. If there's a decision to end this case, we will be thoroughly transparent and give you a full report as to why we decided to drop the case. And everybody says, well, at least they're going to be transparent about it. But I would just point out that that's not necessarily the case. If you never make a decision, then the report never comes due, right? How long is the term? Probably 4 years, maybe. Whatever it is, however long the term is for the Manhattan DA, that whole time, you just say, we're almost there, like Trump's audit, it's almost over, and then you're out of office. And then everybody says, well, what about that report? Why did you decide not to prosecute him? We never did actually decide that. So therefore, we don't owe you a report. Easy. Anyway, where were we with this? Oh, yes, right. Trump says that this is all about fueling the criminal investigation, which isn't even happening. Two lawyers from James's office had assisted the district attorney's stalled investigation, which has led to criminal charges against the Trump Organization and Alan Weisselberg. But the company and Weisselberg have pleaded not guilty to the charges. Nothing against Trump here or the kids. Two top prosecutors from the DA's investigation resigned in February. We learned about that. In an unusual statement on Thursday, Alvin Bragg, that's the DA, said his office's investigation into Trump and Trump Organization and its leadership is continuing. He said his prosecutors are going through the documents, interviewing witnesses, and exploring evidence not previously explored. While the law constrains me from commenting further at this time, I pledge that the office will publicly state the conclusion of our investigation, whether we conclude our work without bringing charges or move forward with an indictment, Bragg said. In the meantime, we will not be discussing our investigative steps, he said. And so the investigation will remain, quote unquote, in progress until he leaves office. And then, I'm out. And also, who cares? Because I'm out of office. I don't know. I just have a feeling that that's the way it's going to play out if there's something nefarious going on. and they're trying to hide it. Maybe there's not. All right, where else were we on this? Oh, yes, this is an interesting legal question, which reminds me that we wanted to get to the shadow docket stuff that we skipped out on yesterday. So maybe that'll come up next. So maybe it'll be all weirdos from Tennessee and Alabama, and then all legal news. That's not unusual for this show. This CNN piece, also by Evan Perez, this time teamed up with Zachary Cohen, Justice Department, the American Justice Department, investigating the handling of White House records taken to Mar-a-Lago after Trump left office. That sounds good, right? But there's some bad behind it. What was it when I put it away in pocket? Why did this? Yes. The headline, I guess, used to be Justice Department blocking National Archives from sharing details on the Mar-a-Lago boxes with congressional investigators probably. And I thought, hey, that's unusual. I'd like to know about what's going on there. And I guess CNN was upset with itself for saying as much in the headline, and I don't know whether they move it to the body of the article. The Justice Department has begun investigating the handling of 15 boxes of White House records, the ones stolen from the White House by Trump, right? Including classified information taken to Mar-a-Lago after former President Donald Trump left office. A source familiar with the matter tells CNN. This comes as the Justice Department is blocking the National Archives from sharing details on the boxes with Congress, which has launched its own investigation, except it's not going anywhere because they don't have any information. In a letter that the House Oversight Committee disclosed on Thursday, Archives General Counsel Gary Stern said the agency was unable to respond to the panel's request for more information based on the Archives' consultation, in quotes, with the Justice Department. And, it might make sense when it's all explained. It's just annoying. But let's see. After receiving the March 28th letter from the National Archives, known also as NARA, National Archives and Records Administration, I guess, House Oversight Committee Chairwoman Carolyn Maloney, a Democrat from New York, reached out to Attorney General Merrick Garland, who's out with COVID, requesting additional information as to why the Justice Department is preventing the archives from cooperating with the panel. I write today because the Department of Justice is preventing NARA from cooperating with the committee's request, which is interfering with the committee's investigation, she wrote in a letter dated Thursday. By blocking NARA from producing the documents requested by the committee, the department is obstructing the committee's investigation, which Justice would be saying, well, we're trying to see if anybody needs to be criminally charged, and if we let all the evidence go to Congress, you'll leak it, and then we might not be able to do what we want to do. It might be as simple as that. Maloney says that the committee does not wish to interfere in any manner with any potential or ongoing investigation by the Department of Justice. However, she says the committee has not received any explanation for why the Justice Department is preventing the archives from providing information to the committee, which is investigating potential violations of the Presidential Records Act by Trump, like eating the records and flushing them down the toilet and stealing them. The FBI and justice prosecutors routinely conduct reviews when classified materials are found to have been handled or stored in ways that don't meet government requirements. Moving and storing classified information to the former president's private club in Florida would appear to fall outside those requirements, don't you think? It is also common practice for the Justice Department to limit information that government agencies share with Congress while an investigation is ongoing. The Justice Department declined to comment. The archives did not immediately respond to a request for comment. In February, Garland responded to questions about the archives' assessment that classified material was found in the boxes at Mar-a-Lago. He said the archives had informed the Justice Department, and we will do what we always do under these circumstances, look at the fact, get COVID, and look at the law and take it from there. And, the get COVID part. He just should have left that out because now it's just ironic and stupid because he has COVID. He didn't say it. All right, you caught me on that one. You caught me. I'm not a special police officer investigating January 6th and giving away free apartments. Damn, I've been nailed. All right, what else do we got here? What is this? Why is this important? Oh, okay. It's not. I had put aside Jake Sherman's tweet the other day confirming that the Vice President, Kamala Harris, would in fact be on hand for the the confirmation vote on now Justice Designate Jackson. She waits until Justice Breyer retires at the end of the term to take her seat. But then again, that just reminds us that apparently there's no difficulty in stacking up justices waiting for others to retire. And yeah, right, that brings me back to my constitutional hardball plan of why are we limiting ourselves to just one? Why not nominate 8, 9, 15 justices right now and get them all lined up? Hey, as soon as this one retires, this is the replacement. And as soon as that one retires, this is replacement, right? And what, by what authority would anyone be able to stop that? Now, of course, it wouldn't mean anything. They wouldn't be on the court per se until the court was either expanded or the justices with whom they were paired actually retired or died or were impeached or whatever it is that takes you out of action from the Supreme Court. So, it's not like they'd force their way onto the court, but what would the objection be? How much in advance do you have to announce, can you announce a replacement? Or, if somebody says they're going to retire, what if somebody doesn't say they're going to retire? What's the difference between that, just saying you're going to retire, and actually either retiring or just saying nothing? Like, why would it be invalid? And I'm not certain what the justification would be. Why is it invalid to say I've named a replacement for Justice Alito? He doesn't have to go anywhere, and we don't know when he is going anywhere. And somebody else could be president later. That's a problem. But, if we've acted on the nomination before the dissolution of the adjournment sine die of the Congress, and we've confirmed the person, does it survive? Does it wait? Does the next president, who's actually president when Justice Alito dies or retires, have a legitimate claim? I was the one who's in the presidency when this was announced, and it should be my right to name this person. I mean, it was Barack Obama's right to name Merrick Garland, but that didn't go anywhere. Does it matter that somebody else has, purports to have claimed the spot? We've never done that. So, I don't know. I say screw around with it. Create a constitutional crisis, just for fun. We should. We never create any. It's our turn. All right, let's see. Here's a Washington Post story saying that they DOJ planning to investigate the Mar-a-Lago things, so related to the CNN story. And, let's see. I guess I should keep scrolling. Oh, right. And then there was the thing that I don't know, did we discuss it briefly? It was on Greg's list yesterday. Trump gave some more interviews lately, and he was once again confessing to things that, or anybody else, it's like, it's time to arrest this guy already. But we all just go, hey, that's Trump being Trump. Maybe we can discuss some of that, and we can reserve the Supreme Court stuff for the other side, although this will probably take us longer and, drag over to the other side. Oh, gosh, I had so many things that I wanted to update you on now that I'm thinking about it. All right. Well, this gives me ideas for how to deal with next week anyway. Right. So the Washington Post piece that Greg brought on his list yesterday and may have mentioned something from, I don't think we talked about it extensively. Trump deflects blame for January 6th silence, says he wanted to march to Capitol. That's the headline. Josh Dawsey put this piece out yesterday morning, and we didn't get to talk about it. The former president struck a defiant posture and repeated false claims in an interview with the Washington Post, which you should just not, I don't know. I don't know what to do with this stuff. And, of course, illustrated with terrible-looking pictures of Donald Trump. So, good choice. Former President Donald Trump voiced regret Wednesday over not marching to the U.S. Capitol, but he doesn't walk anywhere. The day his supporters stormed the building, and he defended his long silence during the attack by claiming House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and others were responsible for ending the deadly violence. That's it. That's the part that motivated me to want to come back to it, right? We're defending the long silence. Remember the big gap in his day, not doing anything, not calling anybody, allegedly, according to the phone logs, even though we know he was calling his own people. So here's his statement here. I thought it was a shame, and I kept asking, why isn't she doing something about it? Why isn't Nancy Pelosi doing something about it? And the mayor of D.C. also. The mayor of D.C. and Nancy Pelosi are in charge, Trump said of the January 6th riot in a 45-minute interview with the Washington Post. I hated seeing it. And I said, it's got to be taken care of. And then I assumed they were taking care of it, which is the most outrageous statement a president could possibly make about that situation. And you know what I say is the only cure for getting over this sickness, Trump Mustang, for this situation. I mean, this is what you're supposed to impeach and imprison a president of the United States for. The Capitol's being attacked. He's launched the attack, for God's sake. And he says, I thought that the mayor of D.C. should be taking care of it. Now, of course, he didn't think they were taking care of it. He knew exactly what was going on. But even if he didn't, once again, he's pointing to the phone logs and saying, well, I thought the reason I wasn't doing anything is I thought they were taking care of it. How many phone calls to Nancy Pelosi or Mayor Bowser asking them, so you are, I mean, this is being taken care of, right? Because I'm watching it on TV not being taken care of for several hours. So I thought I would call and figure out what's going on. Ordinarily, an ordinary citizen might say, I'm not going to call them. They're very busy. President of the United States, seeing one branch of the federal government being attacked a mile away and taking no additional security precautions whatsoever, by the way, something else I've harped on for quite a while, and says, I thought somebody else was taking care of it, but I'm not going to check. I'm not going to intervene. I see they're doing a poor job. I assume they're taking care of it. They're not. I'm going to do something. Of course it's nonsense. He invented it probably 2 hours before he had the interview, or maybe even on the spot. Nonsense. And if true, he should be arrested, tried, convicted, and executed as a traitor and a spy. All right? That's what we should have done with him a long time ago. We should have done it for his COVID response, quite honestly. We should have done that for a lot of things. But, I certainly should have impeached him for about 50 different things. Executing him required some extraordinary action or inaction, and this is one of 2 or 3 things for which I think he really should be severely punished. I can't believe that he thinks he can get away with this. I was tweeting about it yesterday. This excuse couldn't get you out of a high school suspension. These days, if you witness a fight between students and you video it on your phone, if you don't try to intervene and stop it, you're not required to do that necessarily. But if you don't either try to stop it or report it to authorities so that something can happen, you can find these stories. Google them up. They're in the news. Students getting suspended from school because they watched a fight. He just watched a fight on television, and he's the president of the United States. He has no obligation to do anything. I thought somebody else was taking care of it. He would have fired you from the White House staff. He'll fire you right now from Mar-a-Lago if you, as part of the wait staff, the domestic staff, tell him, I thought somebody else was taking care of your lunch. I thought somebody else was getting your Diet Coke. You'd be canned instantly, and no pun intended with the Diet Coke, but he would never accept that. The idea that he thought somebody else was taking care of it and he had no role in it, a huge lie, and it's just horrific. His inaction should have him bounced and exiled if you don't like execution. He should be exiled from the United States forever, sanctioned by the government, just as we're doing with the Russian oligarchs. Because why not? He's the same guy, same kind of person, laundering all their money. There should be sanctions against him. But then the lie on top of it all as cover, I thought somebody else was taking care of it. It's such dereliction of duty. It's outrageous. And they should tear his face off and throw him in a wood chipper. Thank you. He's very angry about this. This should never have happened. And, you get in trouble for this sort of thing, but Josh Dawsey, who was interviewing him, should have clubbed them over the head. But he's a very reserved guy, I'm sure, and that would be unprofessional to do that. There's more to the story. But I don't know if we care about any of the rest of it. And that was the most egregious part that came to my attention. And I could waste the rest of the day complaining about the things that he tells people in these interviews. And no reporters will strangle him. There's just nothing we can do to get these guys to act. But, you know, they're not supposed to do that. And et cetera, et cetera. All right, well, when we come back, we can cover a bunch of other things that I told you I would tell you about. I got an answer. You want to know it? I got an answer about the UN thing and why Russia got to be the successor to the Soviet Union. And the answer was inertia. But that it was highly questionable even at the time, and they just weren't sure what to do about it. Maybe I can share that with you when we're back.
Hi, I'm Scott Anderson, the guy that writes the daily summary for this show, Kagro in the Morning. Thank you to everyone that supports this show. Many of you send donations through PayPal, Patreon, Square Cash, Radio Public, and so on. Some of you write your own essays and send them in, or read articles with your own commentary. We appreciate it. Now, some of you are listening to this and thinking, I'd like to help, but isn't there something I could do that wouldn't require money or effort? Why, yes, there is. You can just like us. On Daily Kos, they call it the recommend button. YouTube has a thumbs up. There are hearts and likes and love buttons. Tap our love button. Tap our love button every day. Share our shows and summaries on Facebook and Twitter, YouTube and iTunes, Stitcher and Amazon. Most of these places allow you to write a review, so a sentence or two would be great. Recommend us to social media, or tell your friends to listen to the show. You aren't just helping us, you're helping them find their new favorite thing to listen to. You could change the world. So thank you in advance from me and everybody else in the world.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. All right, let's see. Other things to catch up on. Well, first of all, I'll get this update out of the way. I know Rebecca Roman sends me this thing just wanting to extend our segment on the weirdos and outlaws of various sorts from the Republican side and all the hypocrisy of their insisting that everybody else is into child sex crimes when it's really them. It's always projection, as she says here, and sharing with us the tweet being passed around by No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen. We've called that name out a couple of times. And I guess update on a guy who I think we added to the Republican squad back when he was arrested. Now he's been sentenced to 12 plus years in prison for his child porn activities. This was Trump aide and RNC operative and pro-life, quote unquote, pro-life activist Ruben Verastegui, V-E-R-A, Vera, S-T-I-G-U-I, Verastegui. Ruben Verastegui has just been sentenced to 12 years in prison for child porn. You may recall that this was the guy who, I don't know whether he was serious or trying to provoke, outrage. Even, I guess these guys who like to be, as they say, S-word posters, love to outrage us normies, but love to one-up one another with their outrage. He posted in his forum, where everybody who posts should be arrested, that how the sexual abuse of babies, like infants, babies, is his absolute favorite. There are allegedly more Republican staffers to come, apparently, coming out of the investigation of this guy, but he's been sentenced to 12 years in prison, and that's good news, although it also means he might survive and get out, which is, bad news. But who knows? Maybe he'll have a tremendous conversion in prison. All right, so, yeah, we've heard about that guy. I'm glad he's getting his 12 years, and, something Disney. But here you go. Okay, let's see. All right, I'll have to get over to the Supreme Court thing, because I said that I was going to do that. Why do I have two Southpaw things here? They're about different things. But yes, some activity on the shadow docket front, about which, again, I don't think that I put aside actual news reporting about it. But let's see if there's some discussion of it lately in the news and how it, the case which put it back in the news again. Here we are from Reuters reporting a day ago. And I noticed in the summary of yesterday's West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy that Justice was going to go over, was going to spend time on that case because it had to do with Trump-era rulemaking under EPA's clean water authorities. And, of course, Trump undoing this stuff. So, in addition to it becoming a shadow docket problem, it had to do with an environmental issue about which he was concerned. Anyway, so he treated it on yesterday's show, if you missed it. And you can go back and get the podcast if he got around to it. Sometimes, like me, I guess you don't get around to the things you hit or you list for yourself as a goal. Anyway, the point is, if you'd like more discussion of it, you can search through the archives from yesterday's show. It's not a big search because it's yesterday. Supreme Court uses shadow docket to revive Trump EPA clean water rule, Reuters reports, thanks to Barbara Gryzinchik. Maybe, I don't know. GRZ, put this in Wordle. GrzIncic. Barbara Gryzinchik is my best guess at how a name like that might pronounce the C's at the end. All right. Slavic? Serbian? I don't know. You tell me. I'm sorry. I can't keep up with all of these things. In a 5-4 split, the U.S. Supreme Court on Wednesday temporarily revived a Trump-era rule intended to fast-track big energy projects by limiting the state's power to curtail them under the Clean Water Act. You see, you get some general idea. I can't unravel that exactly, but some general idea of what we're talking about here. The majority voted to block the effect of an October ruling from a lower court that vacated the 2020 rule. So a lower court, trial court, said, we throw out the rule, while industry groups, Louisiana, the state, and 7 other Republican-led states appeal that ruling. And if either side seeks review by the Supreme Court. So what happens here? It's the trial court throws out the rule. Industry groups and 8 Republican-led, Louisiana and 7 other Republican-led states. Is Louisiana got I don't remember who's the governor of Louisiana anymore. Sometimes Democratic. Maybe that's why they phrase it that way. Anyway, 8 states are looking to appeal the trial court throwing out the rule. And if either side seeks review by the Supreme Court, they're blocking the effect of the vacating of the rule. All right, well, anyway, you get the idea of kind of where we stand here. The majority gave, this is why it's so bad, this shadow docket stuff. The majority gave no reason for granting the application filed on its emergency docket, often called the shadow docket, because the cases are decided with minimal briefing, no arguments, and no explanation. And there's really no reason why that should have been on the emergency docket at all. That's one of the problems. Justice Elena Kagan joined in her dissent by Chief Justice John Roberts, who says, yeah, this stuff is an abuse. And Justices Stephen Breyer and Sonia Sotomayor said the case did not belong on the emergency docket because the petitioners had not identified any threat of immediate harm. By granting relief anyway, because who cares, we feel like it, because 5 justices say, no basis for it, but I want there to be a relief, we'll do it. By granting relief anyway, the majority signals its views of the merits and renders the court's emergency docket not for emergencies at all, Kagan wrote. The legal dispute stems from changes to the Environmental Protection Agency that the Environmental Protection Agency made in July of 2020, Trump's EPA, to its interpretation of Section 401 of the Clean Water Act, which gives states and eligible tribes some power over interstate pipelines, coal terminals, and other federally licensed projects affecting waterways and wetlands in their jurisdictions. The 2020 revision made it impossible for states to block projects for any reason other than direct pollution into state waters. Some states had previously weighed on other factors, such as climate change, which is real and happening. 2 coalitions of environmental groups and tribes and about 24 Democrat-led states, democratic politician-led states, filed suit to vacate the 2020 change. U.S. District Judge William Alsup in San Francisco agreed with them last October, leading the industry groups in 8 other states to appeal to the Ninth Circuit. Meanwhile, the EPA had already started work on a revision that it expects to finalize in 2023. Its attorneys at the Justice Department did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Louisiana Attorney General Jeff Landry, the American Petroleum Institute, the Interstate National Gas Association of America, I bet it's natural, and the National Hydropower Association all praised the Supreme Court's action, saying it will ensure that critical energy projects can move forward without needless delay. However, the challengers' attorneys from Earth Justice, Sierra Club, and the Western Environmental Law Center decried Wednesday's order and vowed to keep fighting for local control of local water supplies. Regardless of the ultimate outcome of this litigation, EPA must act quickly to finalize a substitute rule that restores states and tribes' authorities, the Sierra Club's attorney Nathan Matthews said. And they can, and they should. The case is Louisiana et al. Versus American Rivers et al. You don't really care about the application number, do you? For petitioners, Louisiana et al., who cares? Why? I mean, it matters who the lawyers are, but not for our purposes. For federal, this is all this stuff. Okay, so this is the end of the article, the end of the substantive material, except for the names of the lawyers representing the Justice Department and the Washington Attorney General's office, etc. Okay, so that's the news background of this thing. NYC Southpaw, who frequently comments on matters such as this, tweeted the other day, "This is a real shadow docket humdinger. A district court vacated the Trump-era EPA rule that had overturned 50 years of precedent and practice under the Clean Water Act. 5 justices granted an emergency stay without saying why." And Roberts joins Kagan's dissent, which is the signal that something serious is going on here. Even very conservative Justice Roberts says we got to have some rules here, but he's no longer necessary to come up with a 5-judge majority. Now, I also have here, I think, some additional writing that might help here. A small tweet thread comments. Oh, and I think there's something else here too. Let me see if I can identify it, because as I recall, I think I put aside someone's more extensive Substack on the situation, or newsletter, but now I don't see it immediately available here for some reason. I think that's kind of odd, but okay. Let's see. Maybe I'm scrolling in the wrong direction. Did I put it away down here? Somebody, I think, put together a fairly lengthy discussion of that. No, that wasn't it either. Oh, gosh. All right. Well, I guess I could keep it a little shorter here, but I was going to use at least Will Wilkinson's small thread here to make a larger point. But Will writes, if SCOTUS rules on regulation without a hearing or argument, the administration, this is a good idea, should simply ignore it and state that in the absence of a normal process of judicial review, it sees the court's judgments as advisory but not binding. I mean, it's a radical move, and it'll create a lot of problems, and it will just give license to Republican administrations later to do the same thing on things that will make us mad. That's true. But it's an interesting thought, an interesting concept. It's essentially like a signing statement on a Supreme Court ruling. But given that it's not a fully fleshed out Supreme Court ruling with actual hearing, argument, and opinions rendered, you might think about something like this. He goes on to say, the court famously has no enforcement authority. Its authority is based in the acceptance of the court's legitimacy, but it can't do whatever the hell it wants, however it wants, and expect deference. The executive ought to brush off the court's junta-like attempts to rule by edict. When the court behaves transparently, when the court behaves in a transparently political way, it deserves political pushback. I also will note for the record, how many times, well, I won't note for the record how many times I've said it. I will ask on the record, how many times have I said that the Supreme Court is essentially moving towards, eventually they'll find the case on which they just can't find a real justification that they're not totally embarrassed by, but still need that outcome. And I remind you that they don't actually need to provide reasons for the decisions they make. The shadow docket is the place where they demonstrate the truth of that. They try not to have to demonstrate the truth of that through their regular docket where they actually hear the case and issue opinions. But eventually we'll run into the case, I think, especially with these justices in the conservative majority, where they will realize the true extent of their authority, or at least what they think is their authority. And, the executive or other branches might disagree with that, and then we'll have to have that fight. But they eventually will find out, this is embarrassing. I don't really have a good reason why we should have the outcome I want, but I want that outcome. So here it is, and I refuse to tell you why I decided it that way. You're just going to have to live with it. The end. But for now, the shadow docket is where they're actually doing that. And that will eventually creep over into the regular docket. And I think you should know that. Okay. Maybe that's all I can add without... Yeah, I was pretty sure I had somebody interesting's Substack/Medium essay on this latest shadow docket shocker. But anyway, I hold it out as progress along the road to ruin, but progress nonetheless, toward the day when Republican justices just simply say, do as I say, I don't have to tell you why. And we'll eventually get there, and you'll all say, I knew it, because David told us it was eventually going to get to there. Okay, let's see. Other items. Maybe the thing to do here is to spend the time on something I've already mentioned, even though it would make a great recorded show for later on. But a Good Friday ending, maybe. But not Good Friday, but a good type of ending for any Friday, good, bad, or otherwise. I told you, I found or an actual answer on the succession of Russia, the Russian Federation, to the UN seat held previously by the Soviet Union. Now, there's a academic type paper on this by Yehuda Blum, who is the Hirsch Lauterpacht Chair in International Law at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem, who wrote this piece in, I don't know what is the name of the journal, Kaleidoscope? Is that right? I don't know. I can't tell from the URL, but the top of the thing says Kaleidoscope. Russia takes over the Soviet Union's seat at the United Nations. When was this published? 1992, so just after this actually happened. But an analysis of the reasoning and the mechanisms that were used. I think I looked it up because we said, hey, nobody ever voted. When did they ever make the decision to let them have the seat. They must have, but then I thought they must have had something. And why would I have paid attention to it? I'm not a UN watcher. So it may be that they actually did have some sort of procedure, if not a vote. And this helps explain it. And then basically reaches the conclusion. We never read all the way through this because it's like 9 pages of stuff, but I'll give you some bits and pieces of the important parts. But basically the conclusion is here that they said for political reasons and practical reasons, they basically said, due to inertia, we're going to give this seat over to Russia because we don't know what else to do with it. And declaring it vacant causes problems. Now, there's some background information, which is that there's some precedent for this, that it is within the contemplation of the rules, the charter of the UN, that successor states would retain the previous state's seat, without having to reapply for admission, for instance, to the United Nations, which is something you have to do as a newly created state. But they basically said, if you are a state encompassing, whatever it is, 100, for the sake of argument, 100 square miles, that's a very small country, right? But 100 square miles, 1,000 square miles, doesn't matter what it is. But you, for whatever reason, lose territory and population through a war, conquest, whatever, secession of separatists, I don't know, any reason. Does that mean, because your borders and your population changed, that doesn't mean, you're not the entity that was here before. You're out and you have to reapply. It's just a thing that happens with states. So you lose some territory, fine. Russia was the Soviet Union. And also, it goes on to say, by the way, changing the name or your form of government, that too is not something that's easily contemplated in the charter. Not something you're going to get, erased from the UN rolls and have to reapply for, because that happens all the time too. Changing the name doesn't really mean much. Changing your form of government happens all the time. We can't stand in the way of that. That can't be the barrier. So all of that is fine. The Soviet Union becomes the Russian Federation. Everybody, leaves. The various provinces and Soviets, as they had, separate out, etc. But their process of dissolution was very weird and strange, including a declaration through documents signed by the various component republics declaring the dissolution, the end of the existence of the entity known as the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. That was unique, and that posed a different problem for the United Nations. Then also what created some difficulty was that it happened in 2 stages. Ukraine and Belarus, then known as Bielorussia, and the Ukraine, both apparently separated separately from the Soviet Union, apart from the rest of the republics. And the rest of the republics did it later. I think 11 republics got together at a big conference in Kazakhstan and declared the end of their union with Greater Russia. And the fact that it happened in 2 stages caused some complication. Plus, this is really weird, Ukraine and what became Belarus, they changed their name from Bielorussia to Belarus, didn't have to be separately admitted to the United Nations because, believe it or not, at the outset, at the founding of the United Nations, Ukraine and Belarus at the time had their own seats, briefly, for some reason, in the United Nations General Assembly. I mean, it was a concession to the Soviets, who, even with their place on the permanent seat on the Security Council, etc., were not satisfied, and they felt outnumbered. And you recall, of course, the UN was formulated by and around the allies of World War II. And, so I don't know. That was supposed to maybe not, they were not supposed to feel threatened, the Soviets, but they did, because it was still, at that point, okay, the alliance is over, and now it's the West against us, and we're the only ones here. representing our position or our international communist position. And of course, the West is all aligned against us. Even China at this point is represented by the Republic of China for the first few years of the UN. And so we have no ally against the West here. Even they're Eastern, but they're allied with the nationalist Chinese, and they're allied with the West against us and against communism and expansion of international communism, which, fine, great, that was good for us. Bad for them. They wanted extra protection at the UN, and they got it in the form of the admission of Ukraine and Belarus to their own seats. I don't know why they thought that was going to help them. They were somehow satisfied with saying, well, at least there'll be 3 votes with us on anything that goes against us in the UN General Assembly, which I think is an admission that those 2 don't really deserve their own seats. I mean, they're not independent states at that point. But also very interesting for the Russians, who now say that Ukraine was never an entity, and it's ridiculous to think of them as independent. They've always been just a Russian province. Not when you needed help in the United Nations, they weren't. Anyway, I thought that was pretty interesting. Prior, it says, to the upheaval, I'm going to skip some of the material because there's no way to get through it now. But it starts this way. The recent disintegration of the former Soviet Union and its splintering into more than a dozen independent states has confronted the international community with a host of legal problems. Among these is a question of the assumption by Russia of the Soviet Union's seat in the United Nations, including the Soviet permanent seat on the UN Security Council. So right away they knew it was a problem. This note is devoted to the legal analysis of these aspects of the transformation in December of 1991 of the Soviet Union into the Commonwealth of Independent States. You remember briefly they were called that. Prior to the upheavals of 1991, the Soviet Union consisted of 15 republics, of which 2, the Ukraine and Belarus, were original members of the United Nations. I did not know that. Their UN membership made little sense prior to 1991 from a legal point of view, it says in the first footnote here. Since the second footnote, the USSR itself, incorporating as it did also the Ukraine and Belarus, was considered a subject of international law, the USSR was, and was a member of the United Nations, there was no legal justification for the UN membership of any of the constituent republics, just as none of the states of the United States ever sought or acquired UN membership. If, on the other hand, the Ukraine and Belarus were considered independent nations for the purpose of UN membership, then all the other constituent republics of the USSR, but not the Soviet Union itself, should have been considered as subjects of international law and as such should have been admitted to the UN. However, political rather than legal considerations carried the day. U.S. President Roosevelt and British Prime Minister Churchill, in an effort to allay the suspicions of Soviet Premier Stalin that the future international organization would be totally dominated by the Western powers, consented at the Yalta summit of February 1945 to the UN membership of Ukraine and Belarus, thus assuring the Soviet Union of 3 votes in the UN General Assembly. For a criticism of the situation thus created, you can of course see this paper here by one Hazard is the name of the author here, Soviet Republics in International Law. Okay. Oh, well, that's interesting. See Hazard, Soviet, maybe it is an actual Hazard, in R. Bernhardt's edited, yes, okay. Encyclopedia of Public International Law. There we are. Okay, so now you can go and look up the citation. No one will ever do it. But what an interesting footnote. I had no idea that they occupied their own seats at that point. Anyway, there's much more to it, including his conclusions that basically, according to legal analysis, the way in which the Soviet Union broke up, insisting that it was dissolving itself as a political entity, really legally meant that they probably should have said the membership of the Soviet Union and its constituent republics is terminated And they're all welcome to rejoin, of course, the door is open, rejoin the United Nations. But that might mean real problems because written into the charter is the permanent seat for the Soviet Union. And it's in there by name. And you can change the name, and that's not a big problem. But if it terminates its existence as a legal entity, which is what the agreement in Kazakhstan purported to do, then you got a real issue. Because now one of the 5 seats is unoccupied, and which of the republics seeking admission to the United Nations are you going to give that seat to, if any? And I guess they basically said, well, look, everybody knows that it makes the most political sense to give it to Russia proper. It's the largest of the republics. It's the one that encompasses the most of the, state infrastructure and is led by mostly the same political leaders. That should be the one. And in all likelihood, none of the other republics is in a position to object, and they probably won't. And as a matter of fact, the agreement by the remaining republics, not counting Ukraine and Belarus, at that point, say that they intend for the political successor at the UN to be the Russian Federation and not them. But what does that mean, given the fact that they've relinquished their legal entity or legal personhood? It's a very interesting article. It's not all that long, and you could read through it, and you might even be able to read through it. It's not dense or difficult to understand, and it's very interesting and revealing and reminds you a lot about what happened at the breakup of the USSR that you might have forgotten about in the years since. All right, time for us to wrap it up for the week and hand things over to Justice Putnam. He comes up next
From
right here on
NetworksRadio.com.
See, NetworksRadio.com. Told
You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
That's right. We got to figure out how we'll entertain you at the beginning of next week. No live shows, though, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, as we take the kiddo to college visits. For now, West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is up next. Justice Putnam will take you on visits around the country and around the world in his view of the news next.